Are you a Catholic and you're confused with Halloween? This program is for you.
I think when the devil sees a Catholic celebrating Halloween, he must have a good laugh and think how ignorant they are.
I think today we're going to have an opportunity to dig deep into the history and the practices of what Halloween is and where it came from.
I'm Father Arthur Lebnikian from the Heralds of the Gospel.
I'm Brother Justin Bonyan.
I'm Brother Gustavo, and this is the podcast of the Heralds of the Gospel. Salve Maria, welcome to the podcast of the Heralds of the Gospel, and today we're going to deal with a topic that we have been announcing for several days, and is everything about Halloween. I think we're going to leave tonight with a very clear notion. We're going to debunk Halloween, if we can, no? And at the same time, we need to make sure that everybody who has children, everybody who is a Catholic, everybody who eventually needs to have some clarity regarding what Halloween is and how we can be involved and still be a Catholic or just be a cultural Catholic, I don't know. Well, all of those things are going to be clarified as much as possible in this program. So I'm here with Father Arthur Lebnikian. He is the superior of the Heralds of the Gospel here in Canada. I'm here with Brother Justin Bonyan, who also teaches in Guiding Light Academy and is head of the religious department. And so we're going to, thanks to the Catechism of the Catholic Church and a little bit of a hint in this history of Halloween, we are going to try to somehow explain to our to the people that are listening all these details that are very relevant and very important. So, Father,
It's a complex issue.
it's
It's complex because it's not clear cut, you know.
Right.
And when we talk about Halloween, we need to understand that there are different Halloweens through the centuries. We could divide them in three major parts. Let's say that the old pagan Halloween, that is a Celtic ritual called Samhain, that we're going to describe a little bit on this, because actually we see that the modern Halloween comes from there. Then we have the medieval Halloween, All Hallows Eve, no? It's Old English, All Saints Eve. So it's a beautiful Catholic feast.
That was a Catholic one.
That was a Catholic one. That's the second one. There's a Catholic one. It's a beautiful feast that was installed by several popes. Actually, participated in the organization of the All Saints, and then we have the All Souls that came on the following day, 1st of November, All Saints, 2nd of November, All Souls, and then we have the modern Halloween as we know it today, which is a completely different thing.
It's a hodgepodge of cultural elements thrown together. I think it's interesting when you're talking about the Celtic reality is not to forget that the base, we may say the barbarian base of Europe was Celtic 2,000 years ago. The Celts were as far away as the Pagan Roots out in Ukraine, all across northern Europe, across the Baltic Basin, throughout France and Germany, and of course England, Ireland, Wales, Manx, or the Manx people, the people from Man, and Ireland, of course, Brittany, of course, the Bretons and the Cornwallians, and all the way down to northern Spain. And when we forget that, how far and wide these peoples were and their customs, right? That also tells you something about the richness of their culture. But that's something to keep in mind. It isn't something excluded just to Ireland or just to a little area. It is very vast, and it gave its roots to much of what is present day Europe.
Off the mic, Father was talking about 1,000 years before Christ.
They celebrated a very important event, actually. You know, the feast was called Samhain. It's a Gaelic name, and we don't know exactly what it means, but it may mean the end of summer. Samhain, end of summer. So the end of summer is, let's say, the beginning of winter, when the falls, the leaves of the trees fall.
Well, I'm sure the people that are watching, the ones on the radio, they will not see this, but in the background, we have just across the street of the Heralds of the Gospel here at the house. That's a scenery we are seeing, and it's true. Now we have all the leaves falling, and it's an idea. Now, yeah, winter is coming, something is dying.
And so people think, seeing leaves falling, I'm not also a leaf that is falling from these trees and is going to go down where I am going.
The medieval church will take very much into that, and the liturgy will reflect that, the aspect of death and end, the end which is coming.
1,000 years before.
But we're not there yet. So this is something it's very much a part of the human soul, right? Where death is a very great reality. Modern man has found ways of forgetting that we die, and we have
Mindfulness now.
we have multiple things. We don't die. We kill ourselves. We have euthanasia instead. We die. We don't. We die on our own terms.
We don't think about dying.
No,
We don't think. That's the problem.
It would be very, very interesting because we're talking about the church, no? And the church means, well, priest. The church means deacons. Church means 1,000 years before. We have someone that is a character here is the Druids, and I'm really not that familiar, honestly. So if you could explain a little bit what the Druids were and why.
Well, the Druids were the priests of this pagan cult that was worshipping the spirits. So their main feast already explains very much their religious philosophy, because it's the fall. Everything is going to finish, and a new year will start. After winter, there's a new year. So we need to prepare ourselves for this new year that is going to start. So they said, yes, we have to invoke the spirits. So the 31st of October was the day in which they will call on the spirits of the dead. Now, pay attention. Dead means two things. When a person dies, he's dead, okay. But when a person goes to hell, he's spiritually dead. So it's another type of dead. So these priests were going to call on the spirits of the dead who were in hell.
So this is not worshiping your ancestors. This is worshiping
Those who have gone badly.
Exactly. So they are the priests of the devil. The devil has a church, and he has changed during history many names. The church of the devil has many names because he doesn't mind, these Druids were the priests, and they will go door to door, asking people for a sacrifice in order to offer this sacrifice to the dead, meaning the bad spirits, those who are in hell, and for them to help you and help the people in the year to come. So they were going to invoke the dead in this sense, and this was something that was mysterious. That was.
So by you giving to this offering, you are partaking in the offering.
Exactly.
You were eating from the offerings.
what would they offer?
Well, it could be food. It could be human sacrifices. They would offer the children. They could offer a woman, to the Druids, etc. They were offering sacrifices, human sacrifice to them.
Anything the Druid would ask, they would have to give.
They will have to give. If not, the spirit will be against you.
Will be against
and
you.
They will punish you. If you don't give, you will be punished by the bad spirits.
That also brings in the element of the jack-o'-lantern,
Yes.
right, as a guide to keep the spirits away. The relationship between the spirits and the humans was very similar to that of the Egyptians, which were trying to, their witch doctors would try to keep away those spirits, not allow them to interact, because when interact was a bad thing. In the Egyptian mythology, it was the duet. You would keep that line away. And it's very similar. And in a certain sense, they were very similar because both of them were very satanic. Both the Egyptian mythology and also the Druid mythologies.
But Justin, you're mentioning of Mike there here that the Irish naturally like stories, right?
Oh.
Because I'm just saying because of the question of the lantern and Jack. Can you?
Well, I mean, the first point is that remember that the Druid traditions were recounted verbally. They were never written down. They didn't have a written language, so the written language came with Christianity. The monks, very quickly after Patrick began his conversion, had a tremendous fight with the Druids, where he had something that was almost like the Acts of the Apostles, where they were flying, not one, but a whole multitude of these things flying and throwing their serpents and everything. And he, with the sign of the cross, defeats all of them. Not like some battle. No, it was very anticlimactic because he didn't struggle with them. He just made the sign of the cross and they all disappeared. And he got rid of the serpents.
St. Patrick brings this in perspective, because sometimes we think, well, these people were pagan, they had their druids, and maybe they were just, misguided people.
Or Patrick was a type of druid himself. And more modern interpretations, they tried to say that Patrick was a druid himself, which is not true. He was as Catholic as you could be. But also it's important to put this whole battle, the Christianization of the Celts in perspective. This is the time of St. Augustine. They lived during the same time. So it's interesting because sometimes we get very upset with the situation of faith in a particular place or within a particular family. And just think of Augustine writing his City of God and his Confessions, where he's seeing society and civilization dying. Rome has been sacked. Everything is dying. He writes his works talking about a hope of a future. And at the same time, Patrick is converting Ireland, who will later send missionaries out to convert Europe. God always has a mysterious action of grace. But the writings of St. Patrick are very medieval. They're very much the idea of an I-thou relationship with God, very contrary to the kind of the mea culpa attitude of the ancients. But just get back to our points there, was that the Irish monks wrote down the myths of the Druids. Mm-hmm. And why? Because it was something that needed to be kept in knowledge. Why? Because they knew that in the future people would look back and begin making stories and feel, oh, it was so much better in this time and so much better. So it was important that we have an account. And the Irish monks were known for that. One of the jokes that one of the historians said, the Irish monks were a generation before were murderers. Petty murderers and kings, and next generation they're giving themselves to God. One moment they're collecting gold for themselves and for their peoples, and generation next they're collecting books. And it was because of the Irish Renaissance, which happened about 500 AD, that we have as many books from the antique generations as we do. And the monastery spread throughout Europe and before the Benedictine reform. So it's important that we understand this in perspective. The Druids were nothing nice. There was nothing kind and beautiful. And, they were suppressed because they were so cute. No.
They were the ancestors of the priests. No.
No, not at all. They tried to kill Patrick.
Oh, many times.
Many times. And once, Patrick was traveling on a horse chariot, and he was with one of his disciples, and the disciple had a kind of an intuition that the Druids were willing to kill St. Patrick. So he said to St. Patrick, please, you are going to be driving the horse, and I'm going to be sitting in the back. And it was amazing because it really happened. They tried to kill him, and he died, and not St. Patrick.
Wow. The Irish intuition.
Yes. So they love the night. The ceremony took place at night. They would light big fires because many cultures they consider fire, was a symbol of God, and actually it is. It is a symbol of the true God. But for example, in Deuteronomy chapter 4, it is said that for the Lord your God is a consuming fire. So God is a consuming fire, and the fire is a symbol of God. But these pagans, they thought that the fire was God, which is not correct. The God is the one who did the fire to be a symbol of himself.
Yeah, they got a problem of the symbol and symbolized and got them mixed up.
Exactly. So they love to do it at night. The devil loves darkness. God is the light. God created the light for us to understand. The devil likes darkness. He likes confusion, and he wants to take people away from the light. So St. Patrick and then the church, as you just mentioned, fought against these pagan traditions, and they explained to people how all these things were evil, that really there are spirits, but the spirits are the angels and not the devils.
So just to recap, so these druids are going at night, door to door. They demand from you a human sacrifice or an offering or whatever. If you don't give it to me, this
or this.
Okay. And then St. Patrick comes, and then the church all of a sudden.
I mean, what's very important to look at within the history of, of course, we're looking at the history of Ireland here, and this is the same case. We look at Scotland and all the other Celtic places. Patrick doesn't have an army. I don't even think he had a sword. But he's able to convert these people who are bloodthirsty. Don't forget, Ireland was made up of 32 counties. Each county had a king. Each county was trying to kill everyone else. All he did was kill each other. And we'll see remnants of that later on with the crisis of Columba, St. Columba, when he, again, was involved in the interaction wars and everything else. And he gets expelled from Ireland and sent to Scotland. We forget this, right? So why did the Irish people convert to Patrick? He didn't offer them anything. He offered them truth.
But also imagine, the kind of freedom you're having. These people at night demanding your children to be sacrificed, and all of a sudden St. Patrick comes with the light of Christ. Obviously, that's beautiful, kind of very liberating in the good sense.
Rid of the snakes, which were the pets of the Druids. So that was one of the things. He expelled all of their cursed elements.
So, Father, you were saying in the beginning, sorry if I interrupted you, but that the church all of a sudden comes and offers another Halloween, right?
So now we are moving ahead. St. Patrick he existed in the 5th century. Then in the 6th and 7th century, the church starts, to educate the people and try to take them out from darkness into light. And Pope Boniface IV, he institutes the Feast of All Saints. So, yes, we need to know what's going to happen. We need to have a communication with the world that is beyond what we see, because it's real and we are going to be part of it. So who are those who are going to guide us in the right direction? Are the devils or are the saints? Are the angels? So the Pope institutes a feast by coincidence, let's say, precisely on the same moment in which the Celtic had this pagan feast. He instituted on the 1st of November the feast of All Saints. It was actually, in May, but then they was moved to November. That is a little
coincidence in dates, no? Because we're talking about 31st of October, 1st of November, this November the 2nd.
So it's then when the word Halloween appears. This is when the
Eve.
Hallows Eve, exactly. This is the eve of the saints. So we need to talk with the saints. We need to venerate the saints. Unfortunately, today, we don't talk with the saints anymore. People who don't pray.
We are practical. We're anti-metaphysicians. We don't believe in what's above what I can see and touch and feel from my empirical knowledge.
So we tend to live in a practical, in a very pragmatic, in a very low-level world. But the thing is that the human soul of all human being is done for another dimension, and is Thursday for this dimension. As Saint Augustine said, as said to many other saints. So if we don't give to the human being the right answer and the right communication with what is good, he will necessarily go and look what is bad, because he needs to go above his the life of every day. And this is what explains why this feast of Halloween has an attraction. And it's a good attraction. Because, yes, we need to venerate the saints. We need to venerate the angels. And there is a communication between us and those who are in eternity. So that feast comes, and the church is a very happy feast. All Saints is a feast of joy. It's a feast of veneration. It's a feast of in which people feel lifted up, and they are supported by the saints. Each one actually has a guardian angel. That's the gift that God gives to each person when he's born. It's not a small gift. We receive a guardian angel. So this is the day in which we communicate with him, and we communicate with the saints. We pray with the saints, and on the following day we pray for all those who have died and still they are not in paradise. They're not in the full union with God, which is heaven. So then the unfortunately, in the 16th and 17th and 18th century, this feast starts to be mixed up with other things that are not exactly, pure Catholic thinking, and we once again we try to bring, things of the underworld.
We're talking about Ireland, no? Because the Irish are the ones that came here to North America, and apparently they imported all of this. But it seems that the Protestants tried somehow to counteract, this feast of All Saints and everything.
Well, I think they counteracted all the feasts. So we're looking at the Puritans in the United States. So we're talking about the ones principally in what is now New England. And they were against everything. Their relatives in England were the ones that were in favor of abolishing all music, all color, all celebrations, birthdays, Christmas, and of course, All Saints' Day disappears. Everything disappears. So we get rid of all of it. And of course, these holidays would have come over with the Irish in the different waves, the flight of the Earls, and then the potato famine, and the potato famine, and the subsequent exoduses from the Celtic lands, right? When they had the clearings in Scotland, right, where they decided to clear out the Catholic Highlanders, and they came again to North America because there was nowhere else for them to come. They brought with them these Catholic traditions, but unfortunately, when people become ill-educated, which was actually the plan of the Puritan Protestants, which was to debase the Catholics, take away the vehicles of education. When people are ill-educated, they become superstitious. They lose the element of what faith builds in with them, and superstition begins to supplement.
That's the danger of being ignorant, huh?
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the tools that the devil used with Halloween. Used the finicky element of superstition, with which allowed to grow, left untended, grew, and it gave the bed for which you're going to talk about now, the more modern iterations of Halloween.
So basically, from the All Hallows Eve, we went again back to the superstitions, poorly catechized people, ignorant, and then
We're back to the Druid.
the Druids again. They
Satan always goes back to his old.
pray for us.
His old team. He's gonna go back to his old team.
In America, after the Second World War, they came with a kind of commercialized Halloween that was not really Catholic. It was a mixture of some.
But it wasn't spiritual.
No, not spiritual at all. It was materialistic. But then they introduced, in order to make it more funny and attractive, they introduced the funny things of the Druids.
They brought in the ghoulish. They brought in the macabre, but made it funny.
The pumpkin.
The pumpkin heads and the different stories and what have you. But they were funny. They weren't nightmare inducing.
Yes.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But that was where they were going, but that wasn't there yet.
Because when you make fun of the devil takes it seriously. He comes in and he opened the door. You can never make fun or do funny things and dress yourself as the devil. Oh no, just a funny thing. It's not a funny thing. The devil takes it seriously, and there are many cases of possessions during Halloween. Children that do weird things, and the devil really gets them.
Absolutely.
So yes, but at a certain moment, right, the tones start to become darker and darker. No, we go from the post-Hollywood or the Hollywood,
Yeah, we're talking like 45, 50, 55, 1955. And it moves into the 60s, and we hit the 70s. That's where it becomes dark. That's where it begins the darkening element, where you end up with Hollywood coming up with films with this darker element, this more spiritual. And don't forget also, I think is another problem that we were talking about before, which is that the human person is made with a body and soul. We're made with a soul, and we're striving for what is above the physical. And the problem is that society had sucked out the spiritual out of society. This was a crisis of faith, both in the Catholic Church and in the world as a whole. And when the soul, it has no spiritual. There is no spiritual. It's absent. You're living only with the tangible, only with the material. The soul's looking for something. The soul's looking for oxygen. And unfortunately, you feed it what? You feed it garbage. You feed it the preternatural.
Exactly. So people, they ask the children, what are you going to be? And the question is a limited question, because actually they are asking, what are you going to be in life on earth? But the real question is, what are you going to be even after death? What are you going to be in eternity? Are you going to be a saint? That's the real question. Do you want to be a good person? So the emptiness of the supernatural, of the good supernatural, not teaching people the real things of the spirit, of the saint, of the angel, opens the door to all these weird things that we're seeing today.
The 18th chapter of Deuteronomy, it says something that's very important. It says, not to try to consult the spirits of the dead, not dabbling in magic and witchcraft and the like, because it's a violation of the covenant with God. And we have to remember that, because that's serious. I'm not sure if you remember the story of Saul with the witches of Andorra, right? And Samuel, who's dead, he's dead and in the bosom of Abraham. He says, you have bothered me. What have you done? And he says, well, I needed to know. God won't speak to me. He says, you didn't catch a hint, basically. God doesn't want to talk to you. You've done wrong. And he's saying, you have done a grievous evil. You have broken the covenant. Right? So that's really important. So when we fool around with these things, some people think it's toys, right? Like you have a Ouija board. You can buy it at Toys R Us, okay? You're going to commune with who? Who are you communing with? No, it's just fun. The devil doesn't think it's fun. The devil's like, yes, I opened the door and I'm allowed in. You are inviting me in. That's it. We're done.
And the devil accepts any invitation.
Oh, any invitation. He's not exactly the most busy person in that sense. He'll accept any invitation from anyone at all times. He's open to all invites. He's a lousy guest. He gets in the door and never leaves.
So the bishop of Biloxi, actually, he did a very courageous statement. he came out with a memorandum in which he alerts now the faithfuls in the diocese of not going after all these weird things, and not putting decorations of things that are from the devil in any property of the church, and actually in any property of any Catholic house.
Sometimes Catholics complain, okay, but where is this explanation, on Sunday Mass? Eventually, where is this clarification that I can receive, from our pastors? Well, here we are, right? It's a Bishop of Biloxi, Alabama, I think is it, no? Yeah. Alabama, Mississippi. And then here he goes, right? He explains.
Read right from his words, because this is it's meant to be straightforward, to the point, and in a land in the South where they love to decorate, they love their decorations. Okay, the South is all about hospitality and about decorations and family and good times. That's the South. So he goes here, and I quote, "Today's culture has accepted practices of the occult as normal." It's very important. Our society has accepted the practices of occult as normal. This is very important for us to underline. And Halloween has particularly been used to promote a celebration of the occult. Period. Okay? Clear. Are we having any doubts? No doubts. No more fun and games, people. It's pretty straightforward. Our children and adults are exposed to movies, books, music, television, games of all kinds, social media, etc., that make magic, demons and devils, and witches appear to be make-believe. A game, fun, attractive, and quote-unquote normal. He's very clear here. Okay, I don't think we have any discussion on that point. It's cut and dry.
And unfortunately, many Catholic parents, they feel this peer pressure of the culture of today, and brutal. For them it's difficult to face it, so they give in. They say, okay,
it's easier. It's easier
to give in.
What, you're going to be the weird one who doesn't? I was talking to a parent now, just a couple of days ago, and they don't do it. So they have no decorations. And this is here in the city of Toronto, in the suburbs. And their house was egged because they weren't participating. So it's not just peer pressure being a latent effect, but it's damaging their property. Okay? So I'll continue here. Okay, so he's talking about the diocese, right? He's giving an instruction for his diocese. He goes, Halloween and fall decorations, again, very important for that area of the world. They really decorate. So on diocesan properties will not blur the lines between what is Christian and what is not. We must intentionally avoid those things that are contrary to our Catholic faith. And I think that's really important, is that by practicing these things, we are denying our Catholic faith. It's not just fun and games, but have become popularized through secular adaptation of Halloween. When people see items on display that celebrate magic, sorcery, Satan, divination, etc., they could assume them to be approved practices and that they are benign.
So no confusion, no place for any.
But I think also he's saying that what's the opposite of benign? Malignant.
Malignant.
We should never have on our properties, even in jest or in play, decorations or items that represent evil or divination, such as fortune telling, palm reading, astrology, horoscopes, tarot cards, Ouija boards, and other items disguised as games. Okay? And there are many more. Oh yeah, he's done a very good list, but there's many more. Yeah. I mean, but again, it's a memo. It's not an encyclopedia. Okay. Also, we must not encourage Halloween costumes that celebrate the dark world. We must encourage the world of light. Jesus, Mary, the saints in heaven. The custom of dressing up in the devotional in devotionals is in its roots, and Halloween is literally All Saints Eve, going house to house to receive food from neighbors in exchange for promising of prayer for their deceased loved ones, was the beginning of the trick-or-treating. Celebrating this holy time of the year is good when respecting the sacred intentions of All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. Halloween can be a lot of fun for the faithful. There are also so many ways to decorate and celebrate in a faith-filled way. Okay.
So, Father, for those who are listening to us and for those who would like eventually to say, okay, if Halloween is basically a satanic ritual, right? What are the options that you could advise the people who are listening, right? What are the options? What are the alternatives? For
First of all, we should know what's going on and not be ignorant, because if not, we don't know where we're going. Secondly, let's disguise our children of saints, not of devils. Let's do something fun, etc., but with good things. The church has many resources for this, and we have to reinvent Halloween. As we mentioned in the beginning, there are 3 Halloweens now. We have to do the 4th one now. We have to reinvent, and we have to do the real, healthy Catholic uplifting, and not taking down of for the children, and teach them to know the saints, and to imitate, and to look towards the saints and the angels and the good supernatural world.
They are our friends, our real friends. They want us to be happy. The other ones have only misery in their minds. It's misery and sadness, right? So you want your little child, like your 2-year-old toddler, dressed up as Lucifer. Isn't that cute? Is that what you want?
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for those who are parents that are listening to us. That's why it's so important what the educators talk when they say it's a teachable moment. No, teachable moments are opportunities you have in which you can take advantage of a circumstance and actually project it to something big and something one can learn. So the lives of the saints. How many saints are there that we don't even know, right? And it's a particular fantastic opportunity to help the little ones to discover new saints.
A lot of Catholics have this problem, and I encounter this a lot, which is that they believe that, I think fundamentally they believe heaven is empty, because the only ones in heaven are those that are canonized. Right? We know that the word canonized comes from Greek, which means put into a list. But these are just the ones we know about. How many hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of souls over the years were martyred for their faith, and no one knows a word about them, right? We know a couple. Even then we have groups. For example, you have a leader of a Roman legion, and we'll say, and his 40 companions, or his 60 companions. We don't have their names, but they went to heaven. So there's plenty of choices out there. The question is, are we willing to confront the society, confront the culture of death that we live in, or are we just going to allow our little boat, our little family boat, to float aimlessly along?
Well, perhaps one good suggestion we can make, to families is to get together with other families who think likewise, and eventually, exchange and make of this, this good, this good moment, of remembering the saints and everything else. Eventually, get together and let's make an exchange.
There are many initiatives in Europe and in North America. The children get together, and each one has to tell the story of a saint that he had chosen. And the one who tells the best story, he gets, a reward. He gets a big cake or whatever, chocolates.
Well, this does an apostolate. It is a way of bringing someone closer to God. And unfortunately, people do this on a negative sense. The more hideous, the more macabre their outfit, their costume is, they get a prize. So why can't we do the reversal? Why can't we do better? We got better people.
We can imitate the saints. We shouldn't imitate the Druids, right? Because that's what basically now everybody who is a fan of St. Patrick in many, many ways. Well, there we go, right? I mean, we should imitate him in everything. That's wonderful. Very good. So I think we could wrap the whole night there, basically explaining the whole program, explaining then what exactly Halloween was. And yes, no, it's not nice, it's not good to participate. Definitely, there is something that we can avoid.
So for all those who are watching, I would like to give them a blessing.
Father, before you go, I wanted to call the attention to those who are coming to the program, and maybe for the first time, right? That you see these mugs here, and you have seen, us eventually, using them and so on. Well, there is something that, because some people ask, okay, Heralds, how can we help you? Heralds, how can we support the program? Heralds, well, here we have something that you can actually support with, and is launching that one of our brothers, Brother Francois, has come with, which is coffee. Wonderful. I don't know if people like coffee. We do here in the Heralds. So you can order your coffee, and then you can eventually support the program by getting some of this fantastic, again, product that, again, is not ours. We don't grow it here in Schomburg, but, you can order, not yet, but you can order it whenever you can. So, for more information, you can look down in the notes of the program here in YouTube. Very good. So yes.
So for all your families, for your children, all those who are watching, all the grandchildren, I want to give a very special blessing that asking through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary that she will give you the courage to give the good education and to follow the good examples and to stay away from the bad examples that, unfortunately, our society of today can give. The Lord be with you. And with your spirit. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Go in peace.
Thanks be to God. Salve Maria, thank you for accompanying us in this program, and I'm sure we're going to have Father Arthur, Brother Justin, we're going to get together in many other programs. So stay in touch, stay tuned, as we say. So Salve Maria, everyone.